Have you ever felt that quiet, nagging sense that something's off? That no matter how packed your schedule is, how many people surround you, or how many goals you chase, deep down, something's just missing? Like you're going through the motions of life, but not really living it? You might have called it anxiety. Maybe a doctor called it depression. Maybe they gave you something to quiet the discomfort, a pill in the morning, another at night. And time passed, numbing what maybe, just maybe, you were supposed to hear. But what if I told you that what you're feeling isn't some mistake in your brain chemistry? What if it's not something to suppress, but something to listen to? Carl Gustav Jung, one of the most influential figures in depth psychology, had a radical idea. He believed that what we often label as mental illness isn't necessarily a disorder. It's your psyche's way of trying to heal itself. It's your inner world sending up flares, telling you that the life you're living doesn't serve your soul. You might be stuck in a routine that was never really yours, a job that drains you, relationships that take more than they give, dreams that, if you're honest, never even came from you. And beneath it all, your true self is screaming for air. But nobody taught you how to listen to that scream. In fact, we're taught to ignore it, to perform, to adapt, to not make waves. And so you stay quiet, you keep showing up, you tick all the boxes, and the world praises your productivity, while your spirit quietly wilts. That's where Jung's wisdom hits home. He said healing isn't about covering things up, it's about going in. It's not about silencing symptoms, it's about understanding them. He famously said, "Neurosis is always a substitute for legitimate suffering," meaning the pain you feel isn't random. It's the result of avoiding a deeper pain you need to face in order to change. And as long as you keep running from it, the suffering stays. This video isn't for people who want to keep distracting themselves. It's for people who are tired of faking it, who feel like they're slipping under, but still hold on to a small flame of hope that there's another way. And there is. But it starts with a hard decision, to stop running and start listening. Listening to your body, listening to your subconscious, listening to the pain you've tried to drown out with routines, noise, substances, or denial. If you're still here, maybe you already know that emptiness isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign that you, your real self, has been absent from your life for far too long. And it's time to change that. Maybe you've been feeling this way for weeks, maybe months. You go to a doctor. You talk about your sleepless nights, the heaviness in your chest, the constant disconnection. You say, "I just don't feel right." The doctor might listen for a few minutes, if you're lucky. Then he types a few notes, gives you a label. It's anxiety. Maybe even adds, "Let's start you on something." Just like that, your entire existential crisis gets turned into a diagnosis and a prescription. The unique cry of your soul becomes a clinical entry in your file, a chemical imbalance. End of story. What they don't tell you is that this kind of treatment isn't designed to help you understand your suffering. It's designed to help you function, to keep you working, consuming, producing, keeping the machine moving. And sure, the medication might help you endure, but is endurance really the goal? Jung didn't think so. He saw it as a trap. He believed that many of today's psychological issues don't come from a flaw in the brain. They come from a disconnection, from a life that no longer reflects who you really are. When you ignore your inner voice, your passions, your values, your soul begins to ache. And since your soul doesn't speak with words, it communicates through anxiety, through sadness, through that gnawing feeling that something's not right. And instead of asking why we feel this way, we're trained to shut it down, to medicate it, to numb the discomfort so we can get back to normal. But ask yourself, what is this normal we're so desperate to return to? Is it the job that exhausts you? The relationships that feel shallow? The routine that makes every day blend into the next? The quiet fear that you're just surviving, not living? The anxiety you feel isn't a malfunction. It's your soul yelling, "This life doesn't belong to me. You're betraying who I really am." And if you keep ignoring it, the signal gets louder. At first, it's just discomfort. Then it becomes exhaustion. Then it might become full-on collapse. But each time, society's ready with another fix. A new pill, a new diagnosis, another way to numb what should be heard. And the more you adapt to that system, the more you lose yourself, until you reach a point where you don't even feel much at all. Not the pain, not the joy, just This low, constant numbness we're told is adulthood. Jung warned that treating the symptoms without facing the root cause creates an illusion of healing. On the outside, you may seem fine, but inside, you're drifting further and further from yourself. And eventually, that divide creates a collapse that no medication can fix. Because no matter how far you run, the soul always demands its due. It will make itself known through burnout, breakdowns, or a haunting emptiness that no achievement can fill. What we're dealing with here isn't just an individual issue. It's cultural. It's systemic. We live in a world that fears suffering because it no longer sees the value in it. But Jung knew suffering can be a gift, a signal, the start of your most important journey. He called it the path to individuation, the process of becoming whole. But in modern society, any sign of distress is immediately seen as a flaw. And by running from that pain, we run from the very opportunity to grow. So ask yourself, how many people do you know who've been medicated into silence? How many stories were cut short because we prioritized comfort over truth? How many people are living lives that aren't even theirs? To start answering those questions, we have to zoom out. We have to look beyond individual pain and examine the environment that creates it. The culture, the structure, the lifestyle that keeps us disconnected from ourselves. Because maybe, just maybe, the real problem isn't you. Maybe it's the world that taught you to hate yourself. So let's dive into what Carl Jung believed was at the root of so much modern suffering. Not just the individual, but the entire system we're born into. Have you ever wondered how it's possible to feel completely lost even when you have it all? Material comfort, a decent job, a social circle, maybe even achievements people admire. And yet, deep down, there's a sense that something is off, as if you're playing a role in a play you didn't audition for. That's not an accident. That's not a personal failure. That's the world you live in. Jung saw this clearly. He knew the modern emotional crisis isn't just a personal issue. It's cultural, it's structural. We live in a society that tells you how to look, what to want, how to succeed, and then punishes you for not feeling fulfilled by any of it. From the time we're kids, we're handed a script. Go to school, pick a safe career, stay busy, smile for photos, don't cause problems, don't show weakness. We're trained to please, to compare, to chase approval. But we're not taught how to tune into our own inner compass. Nobody asks, what makes your life worth living? Instead, we learn to base our value on how others see us, how we perform, what we produce, what we own. And that's where the slow, silent breakdown begins. This is the disconnection Jung warned about, a split between your outer life and your inner truth. And that split creates suffering. You check all the boxes, career, relationships, routines, but inside, something doesn't click. You feel like you're living someone else's life, like you've been cast in a role that doesn't fit. That feeling isn't weakness. It's your soul resisting. It's your essence pushing back. But society doesn't want you to hear that inner voice. Because a disconnected person is easier to manage. They follow rules, buy things to fill the void, chase goals they didn't choose. They keep the system running. That's the real function of the model we live in. Efficiency over authenticity, appearance over depth. And when people finally break under the weight of this disconnection, when they burn out, fall into depression, or start questioning everything, they're met with quick fixes. More distractions, more medications, more labels. Take this, get back to work, don't fall apart. But Jung didn't buy into that. He believed real healing comes from facing the very system that hurt you, from asking, who told me to be this way? What parts of me did I bury to be accepted? What dreams did I abandon to fit in? And this isn't easy, because it means admitting something painful, that you built a life around what others wanted, not what you needed, that the identity you wear might not be yours at all, that you've been shaped by a culture that fears the very thing that makes you whole, your soul. But facing that truth is the beginning of freedom, because only when you acknowledge the lie can you start seeking what's real. And that journey, Jung gave it a name: individuation. It's not self-help fluff. It's not about tweaking a morning routine or reading motivational quotes. Individuation is a radical, deep transformation. It's the process of becoming who you truly are, not who you were told to be. It's about aligning with your essence, yourself. This process doesn't move in a straight line. It's not comfortable or quick. It asks everything of you. It starts when you stop running and begin to integrate the parts of yourself you've buried, the fears, the desires, the grief, the rage, all of it. Jung called this the confrontation with the personal unconscious. It's where the unhealed parts of your story live. The traumas no one saw. The beliefs you absorbed without question. The dreams you silenced because they didn't make sense. Healing begins when you stop avoiding these parts and start listening to them. But even deeper than that, there's the most feared encounter of all, the shadow. The shadow is not evil. It's not a monster. It's the collection of everything you've disowned. The sides of you were taught to hide: anger, envy, sexuality, ambition, sadness. It's the raw, instinctual, emotional side that didn't fit the mold, so you locked it away. But here's the problem. What you ignore doesn't disappear. It grows in the dark and starts running your life without your awareness. That's why Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. You think people are sabotaging you. You think love always ends badly. You think life is just unfair. But what's really happening is that your unhealed inner world is playing out externally, and you're not seeing it. That's the power of the shadow. Left in the dark, it controls you. Brought to light, it transforms you. Integrating the shadow isn't about acting on every impulse. It's about acknowledging what's there without judgment, because that hidden energy, when owned, becomes strength. Creative fire, authentic presence. Only when you stop fighting who you are, your full, messy, contradictory self, can you start living with integrity. Not perfection, not performance, just truth. That's individuation, the journey back to your center. The part of you that's always been whole, but was buried under layers of conditioning. Jung called it the self, the inner compass, the unshakable core of who you are. The irony is, while society screams at you to get better, Jung's message is the opposite. You don't need to be better. You need to be whole, not more impressive, just more real. That doesn't mean the journey won't hurt. It does. It asks you to leave behind comfort, relationships that no longer serve you, identities that kept you safe but small. It may feel like breaking apart, but that's because something new is trying to be born. And once you start aligning your outer life with your inner truth, things begin to shift. Not instantly, not perfectly, but profoundly. Your decisions change, your boundaries shift. You start speaking and acting from a deeper place. Even suffering takes on a new shape. It becomes meaningful. It becomes fuel for your transformation. But let's be real, most people won't do this work. Not because they can't, but because it's terrifying. Because they'd rather stay numb than dig deep. Because facing your soul means facing your pain, and most would rather cope than awaken. Jung saw this clearly. The root of modern suffering is the absence of meaning. A quiet epidemic that lives beneath the surface of lives that look fine. We'll talk more about this in the next section. Because your pain may not be the problem. It may be the signal that your life lacks purpose. But that can change. It must change. And when it does, everything else changes with it. Let's pick up where we left off. The quiet epidemic Jung warned us about. Not anxiety, not depression, not burnout, but the absence of meaning. See, you can survive without meaning. You can go through the motions. You can wake up, go to work, scroll through your feed, binge a show, meet your deadlines, take your meds, and tell yourself you're doing okay. But inside, you feel hollow, disconnected, like you're watching your life from a distance. And no amount of self-improvement fills the gap. Why? Because you're not just a machine that needs maintenance. You're a soul that needs purpose. Carl Jung understood this in a way that modern society still refuses to. He believed that humans don't just want comfort, we want significance. We want to feel that our life matters, that we're part of something larger than ourselves, that our pain means something. And here's the radical truth. Most mental suffering isn't caused by weakness. It's caused by emptiness, a spiritual void, a loss of connection to your deeper self and to something greater than your ego. We live in a culture that's mastered the art of distraction. You can drown out the void with entertainment, success, consumerism, endless scrolling, but the silence always returns. And in that silence, the truth waits. You are not living the life your soul came here to live. That realization hurts, but it's also sacred. Because pain, when you really listen to it, is a compass. It's not there to punish you. It's there to guide you, to show you where you're out of alignment. When people say, I don't know who I am anymore. What they're really saying is, I've followed every rule, chased every goal, done everything I was supposed to do, and it still didn't make me whole. Jung believed that kind of crisis is not a breakdown, it's a breakthrough, if you have the courage to go through it consciously. This is what he called the midlife crisis, but not in the shallow pop culture way. He wasn't talking about buying a sports car or starting over with someone younger. He meant the deep existential moment when your old life no longer fits and your new one hasn't yet arrived. It's like being caught between two worlds, the person you were and the person you're becoming. And most people panic. They double down on what's familiar, or they numb themselves, or they pretend nothing's wrong. But the pain doesn't go away, because it's not asking you to cope, it's asking you to transform. To do that, Jung said you must stop looking outward and start looking inward. Not for answers, but for symbols, patterns, messages from your unconscious mind. Because your psyche is always communicating with you through dreams, fantasies, symptoms, projections. But most of us are too distracted or afraid to listen. Jung saw the unconscious not as a pit of darkness, but as a well of wisdom, a hidden realm where your deepest truths live. And when you ignore it, your life becomes chaotic. But when you begin to dialogue with it, through reflection, creativity, therapy, solitude, that's when change begins. That's when life starts to feel meaningful again. But meaning isn't something you find like a lost object. It's something you make. And it begins with asking the one question modern society avoids at all costs. Why am I here? Not, how can I be successful? Not, how do I avoid pain? But why did my soul choose this life, this body, this time? That question shifts everything. It stops you from living on autopilot. It invites you to become the author of your life, not just a character in someone else's story. Jung didn't believe in one-size-fits-all answers. He knew that your purpose is unique, and you don't find it through logic or strategy. You find it by listening to the symbols of your own soul, the moments that give you chills, the stories you've always loved, the suffering that broke you open, the dreams that won't leave you alone. Your calling doesn't scream, it whispers, it waits. It shows up as a nudge, a longing, a discomfort that won't go away. And yes, it's terrifying to follow that path, because it usually leads away from what's safe. It may mean quitting the job, leaving the relationship, starting over, disappointing people, walking into the unknown. But Jung believed that the only alternative to risking your soul's path is to lose yourself completely, to become a hollow shell, going through the motions, aging but never growing. He saw it all the time. People who looked fine on the outside but were spiritually dying inside. And the worst part? They didn't even know it. He once wrote, "The greatest tragedy of the family is the unlived lives of the parents." Because when one generation denies their truth, they pass that pain down to the next, who are then left to heal what wasn't theirs to begin with. So if you're questioning your life, if things feel broken, if you feel lost, you're not failing, you're waking up. You're being asked to leave behind what no longer fits and step into something truer. But no one can walk that path for you. That's the terrifying beauty of individuation. It's not a group journey, it's a soul journey. And it doesn't happen all at once. It unfolds in layers, over time, with every truth you speak, every lie you release, every shadow you integrate, every dream you honor. And you don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to begin. Because here's what Jung knew, and what so many have forgotten. You were not born to be normal. You were born to be whole. You were born with a self that knows your path, even when your mind doesn't. You were born with an unconscious that is always speaking, if you learn to listen. You were born into a world that will try to shape you, but you still have the power to unshape yourself, to come back to center, to become what you truly are. And when you do that, when you live a life aligned with your essence, you don't just heal yourself, you heal your lineage, you heal the collective. Because nothing is more powerful than a human being who has remembered who they are.